council. At this time, I'll call on Councilmember Smith, who will lead us in the invocation, followed by the pledge of allegiance.
Please bow your heads. Lord, we thank you for this day in which you have blessed us with. We ask that you guide us as we conduct the business of the city. Lord, give us the strength to make tough decisions despite what we are faced with. Lord, I ask that you keep protecting us and continue to help us push this city forward. And all these things we ask in your mighty name. Amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the clerk please call the roll for the establishment of the board?
Councilmember Jenkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Here.
Councilmember Smith?
Present.
Councilmember Harris?
Present.
Mayor Draper?
Here, a quorum is established. I will move that we adopt the agenda as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Jenkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Draper?
Yes, the agenda is adopted. Our only motion, which is normally the item of business tonight, is a motion to award the bid for the Chief Ladiga Trail Project to B&B developers in the amount of $7,267,263.39. I will move for passage and adoption. Is there a second?
Second.
Council discussion.
What was the one? No, it was 7 million, right? Huh? 726?
Yeah. At this point.
Okay.
It's gonna be, yeah.
I put in front of you, Tim and I met with the engineering consultant team and the city engineer last Wednesday evening for about an hour and a half and tried to work through to see if there were any potential savings from that. The engineering team developed a list of 7 items. I spent a little time looking at each one of those based on the conversation, and I make the following recommendation. I put it in front of you. One is I agree to item 1, which is reducing the base down from 3 inches to 2 inches. It was originally 2 inches. There was a certain requirement from testing, compaction testing, that forced them to go 3 inches. Turns out that nuclear density testing is not really required in this application, so 2 inches is fine. It's certainly fine for a bike trail, so there's $157,000 we can save there. The second was to cut the CE&I budget down to 75% inspection. CE&I, so everybody understands, is construction evaluation and inspection, and the budget that they've got in there is for daily inspection. So every day that the contractor's working, they've got somebody there. That's not untraditional on an outlet project, particularly on a road project, but this is not of the same caliber as a road project. And as we discussed it, we talked about the likelihood that initially we would like them there every day. But once that work progressed, that we could reduce that down to 3 days a week, 3 out of 5 days a week. The contractor's obligated to collect tickets for any materials delivered. The way an outline project is bid with unit prices. So those are based off quantities that are provided by the engineering team prior to the bid. So their number is based on quantities that were defined. It's not a lump sum. So this $7,267,000 and change bid price is based on those quantities that are in that, and not necessarily, if he overestimated quantities, that number comes down. If he underestimated, that number goes up. He has an obligation, and Outlet reviews the I think reducing his inspection down to 75% saves us another $152,000, and I would recommend doing that. For item 3 that they presented, they gave us 3 options. One was, and this was one of the discussions we had, was we would stop the trail at 11th Street. The logic in that is that it would get us from Michael Tucker Park to downtown. It would dump cyclists in our downtown area. It would potentially save some dollars, and we could look at getting that last piece from 11th Street to 4th Street done either through our paving monies that we get or some other vehicle to complete that last leg. He gave us 3 options. One was just take the wearing surface off of that. One was to eliminate the wearing in the binder, which they did not recommend, and I agree with that. You don't want to put the base down and then not put something on it to protect the base, or you just end up redoing it. And the third option was to eliminate the base, wearing, and binder. It was $178,000 worth of savings, which I felt like we could very easily, if we could all agree, that we would take, each one of us would take a portion of our paving dollars, which would amount to no more than $25,000 per council member, and we could finish that section and finish it in line with all of this other. So I recommend that we look at option 3C there. Recommend that we cut the contingency. There's $660,000 in that $7.2 million budget of just contingency money. So a bunch of what ifs, right? We don't know. You don't know if you're going to have an area where the rail bed has got a soft spot and we've got to excavate out and put better compacted dirt in there. You don't know if you're going to run into this or that down the course of that thing. The reality is I don't think there's enough of those issues to justify a $660,000 contingency. I don't really believe we'll ever even get to the $500,000 contingency and all of that they're proposing, but there's another $160,000 in savings. The other 2, reducing the binder layer, the lower binder, from 250 pounds to 220 pounds per square yard. The way they calculate asphalt is it's based on a weight, and the weight determines the thickness of it. So 220 pounds of asphalt is a 2-inch thick binder. 250 pounds is a 2 1/4 inch thick binder. The old days, everything we did from Outlaw Specs was a 2-inch binder and a 1-inch wearing surface. And they now do on roads today, they do a 2.5-inch binder and a 1.5-inch wearing surface. What they're proposing here, and the savings that's proposed here, is a 2-inch binder and a 1.5-inch wearing surface, which is more than adequate for pedestrian and cycling traffic. I mean, it's plenty. It'll hold up as long as we'll hold up. So I would recommend taking that savings, and then I would recommend taking the elimination of some of the sod and replacing it with seed. We're still getting ground cover. It may take a little longer to get there. You don't get the instant gratification of the sod, and it's only $26,000, but it is a savings. I do not recommend, do not agree with, and it was one of the recommendations that they came forward with. The engineer recommended items 1, 4, and 5. I don't recommend 5. That cuts $329,000 out, but that takes the wearing surface off for the length of the trail from Michael Tucker Park and finish. So you just have the binder, so you have the heavier aggregate. The wearing surface has got finer stones in it. It's much smoother surface. I think if we don't do that now, we'll never do it. And I don't think that that's a good decision. I think that the others are good decisions. If you agreed with my proposals there, took all of them, it would yield a $669,000 reduction to the contract amount. something to certainly consider is we've got a parking lot at 12th and Noble that we're getting ready to bid. And while I recognize that the parking lot's important to courthouse traffic, I recognize it's important to the freedom riders and civil rights monuments downtown and providing space for that. And I firmly want to see it happen, and we'll continue to work to find it. I recommend that we put a pause button on that until we know kind of where we stand with. I know Mr. Folks and the mayor and others have reached to state and federal partners to try to help find some funding for that, and I firmly believe we will, but we don't have that funding in hand right now, and I think it's prudent for us to hold. We have $500,000 budgeted for that parking lot. I think it's prudent for us to hold that in check until we know where we stand on federal and state participation in the trail project. That together would yield savings of about $1.2 million, which would allow us to leave that in reserves, which made me feel a lot better about where we sat from a reserve. So that is my recommendation, and I guess I would make that in the form of a motion to amend those considerations with the understanding that we are still dealing with unit prices. Those numbers may not be exact numbers, but those are pretty close to where we would land at this point. And then I would make that motion to kind of welcome a second in any conversation that we might want to have.
Okay, we'll need to take up the amendment first. I will note that Mr. Jenkins has provided all members of the council his proposed amendment in writing. So now, as far as taking up the Jenkins amendment, is there a second to the Jenkins amendment?
Second.
Council discussion.
I do want to thank Jay, or Councilmember Jenkins, my bad, for having that meeting with me on Wednesday with Sane and Associates. We were able to really have a deep dive into some conversations of where we can have some of these proposed savings. A conversation that was well needed. I feel like this decision is being forced very quickly, not necessarily because it's being forced on our standpoint, but because we are dealing with endangered species. And I do feel like we need more adequate time to make this decision, but it's time that we don't have at this point. So I do hope that maybe some of these proposed savings, I'm not saying that all these savings can happen. I'm saying that I would be open to some of these savings. So I definitely want to thank you for taking your time and doing that, Councilmember Jenkins.
I want to thank both of you for meeting together and coming to some conclusions as to how we can save money on this project. It is disconcerting, the cost of it. I understand, Councilman Smith, your reservations. I totally understand that. But I totally, from what I have read, from what I've gathered, the economic impact studies indicate that we would get this back rather rapidly in economic development, and let's hope that those studies are correct. Thank you.
So I too would like to thank Councilmember Jenkins and Councilmember Smith. Mr. Jenkins, thanks for your hard work, your thoroughness in this, and all of it. One of my questions I asked for at the last meeting was, are there projects that we have on the table that we can kick down the road? And of course, you brought up the parking lot, which, I mean, if we got to do that, that's what we have to do. However, and I'm going to say something unpopular to probably most of the people who will see this, but I think they said we're getting 102 or 1.2 million for the homeless task force, or for the homeless center. And I get it. We have an issue. I'm not saying the homeless task force haven't done their due diligence. I think they've done a wonderful job. But I think there's being provided useful services from what we're trying to do. And I know we can bring a horse to the water, but we can't make him drink. But I mean, I'm okay with everything we're saying, but I do think I've been calling them shotgun meetings, and I think because of our need, because of our desire to get this done, but also understand materials and stuff go up. But I really, what I don't want to see is us take this money or spend this money, and then next year, right before this council, right before election time, it comes up that we got to cut here, cut there, you know what I'm saying? And, this person loses their job because we spent money on a bike trail that we hope to get money from. Now, I'm all for the bike trail. I think the bike trail is very unique. There are a lot of people who do not like the bike trail, but I think the bike trail will bring us an important economic revenue, and I think the people who don't like it should reevaluate and give it a chance, because a lot of times what happens, we don't like to give new things an opportunity to blossom, and we say no before things happen. But with all that said, I'm okay with it. Just that parking lot is kind of like a little soft spot. Like if we got to do that, we have to do it.
Hey, I agree with you. I don't want to see that parking lot stalled at all.
Yeah, I just want to see the hole.
Hey, I'm tired of looking at that hole too. I think the world is tired of looking at that hole, but,
At least there's no cars in it.
yeah, I mean, the reality is we gotta find something somewhere, and I don't disagree that some of our neighboring municipalities that, benefit from the, services, that are provided in the city of Anniston for a homeless population, shouldn't pony up and contribute. We can't make them do that. That's the unfortunate reality, and I think we are doing the right thing with the shelter there by that community and by our citizens as a whole. And so I weighed that as well in all of this and looked at what we could do there to try to save some dollars on that too. And I didn't really have enough time, quite frankly, to dig into that one and see if there's some savings that can be yielded there as well. There may be. I'm also confident that our city manager and our mayor are going to, and necessary staff is going to yield a positive end with some state and federal partners on this, and that this pulse is going to be very short in nature and allow us to get both projects done, which I think are both needed.
I don't want to dwell too much on some of the comments that have been made. I do respect everyone's opinions, but I really hate that the homeless shelter is being brought into the conversation, because ultimately we're talking about a parking lot and we're talking about a Chief Ladiga Trail who mainly benefits tourists. I feel like we're comparing apples to oranges at this point. We have people who live in the city of Anniston who would benefit greatly from the services from this, and I don't even want to refer it to a homeless shelter. It's a transitioning center. People who are on drugs, people who are suffering from mental illnesses, people who literally just need someone to help change their lives. And I think this is going to be an excellent tool to be able to bring this forward. And really, a conversation that has been ongoing for several years, just like Chief Ladiga Trail. So I'm going to urge the council to leave that project alone and continue forward in providing those services that are greatly needed in this city. Do I wish that we can get some funding from neighboring cities? Absolutely, because they use their police departments to bring homeless individuals to this city. So that is a charge that I would like to put on other municipalities. Do I think that we'll get those funds? Absolutely not. It is what it is. I've been very honest and transparent during this entire process here in regards to the Chief Ladiga Trail. We are basing this decision on what we think will happen. And do I hope that what we think comes to fruition? Absolutely. I hope that this brings us a lot of economic success. I hope that tourism increases. I hope that revenue increases, that will offset the expenditures are coming in. The fact remains that if we agree to this and we get no funding from our congressional members, we are in violation of our own ordinance. We will not have the 17% that was signed several years ago. It is what it is at that point. I understand the reasoning in wanting to make this happen. I'm not saying that it shouldn't happen. My reservations are purely based off of fiscal responsibility, and I don't think that this is being fiscally responsible. Now, if we do get the funding from our congressional members and we're able to do these proposed savings, we're essentially not going to have to take out of our reserves as much as we are now. And that is my hope in all of this. But again, as I said, time is not on our side, and we have to make a decision. In good faith, I can't support something like this, knowing that it potentially could put this city at fiscal risk, that we could possibly have to cut budgets and departments. Could that cost people their jobs, their livelihoods, their ability to take care of their children? We have no projects right now that are generating revenue, nothing even proposed. If I could go back in time, which I can't, but I'm going to say this on the record, I would have prioritized some of our capital improvement projects so that we could make better decisions now. Could we have predicted this? Probably not. But I probably would have prioritized better moving forward. So, you know, it is what it is at this point, but I have to make sure that I'm voting my convictions and stating that to those who voted me in this position. So, thank you.
I just want to say I too appreciate the members' due diligence with respect to this matter. Mr. Jenkins, thank you for lending your professional expertise and experience to the matter. I understand everyone's concerns. I really do. This is incredibly expensive. I get that. At the same time, I believe that the city's future economic development is contingent upon the completion of this trail. This would be not only an economic boon to Anniston businesses, regional businesses, but it will be a boon to our own general fund via sales tax revenue. And I'm confident that our sales tax revenue will increase by virtue of the construction of this trail. I too believe that we will receive some outside funding for this project from both state and federal sources. So again, I appreciate everyone's concerns over this. Is there any other discussion on the Jenkins amendment at this point? Then, Madam Clerk, if you would call the roll as to the Jenkins amendment.
Councilmember Jenkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Draper?
Yes, and so the Jenkins amendment passes. So what remains on the floor is a motion to award the bid for the Chief Ladiga Trail Project to B&B, subject to the Jenkins amendment. Is there further discussion as to the motion in principle? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Jenkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
No.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Draper?
Yes, the motion passes. I will move that we stand in adjournment. Is there a second?
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Jenkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?